Welcome back, everyone. The day is Thursday, April 14th, 2022, and I'm here to cover some very exciting news that came to us 2 days ago on April 12th, and this was during the Hasbro Fan First Tuesday event. The Transformers portion of this event centered almost entirely around the second wave of Transformers Legacy, and then they even threw in a new Shattered Glass figure for good measure. So I'm just going to go over everything that was revealed on Tuesday, and just give some brief thoughts on each figure. And then at the end of the video, I'll open up questions to you and, find out what you guys think of these. So they started the figure reveals with the new Deluxe class figures. There are 4 new Deluxes in the second wave. Now, one of the figures actually got reviewed a little bit ahead of time, just as a teaser for the event, so we'll cover that one first, and that is the Stunticon Wildrider. So for the first time in a very long time, Wildrider actually has his proper name back. The last time they did him in Combiner Wars, they didn't have, the trademark to the name, so they called him Breakneck, with, break being spelled like car brakes. So they finally got the name back. Now, my thoughts on this guy pretty much fall in line with most people's. The alternate mode, the car mode, looks fantastic. It is a gorgeous alt mode. My only contention is one set of wheels has the mushroom peg sticking out, whereas the other one doesn't. Why they keep doing this, I really don't know. I don't know why the mushroom peg can't just be on the wheel, plugging into the body of the vehicle, rather than the other way around. But they keep doing this, and it really breaks the immersion. Like, you got these really nice painted rims, and then you just got this big obnoxious peg sticking through some of them. It's like, why? Is there an engineering reason for this? I haven't seen any examples I can think of where the peg absolutely had to be, sticking on the outside rather than plugging in the inside. I don't get this. But besides that, the alt mode is fantastic. The robot mode from the front looks good. I mean, the robot itself looks very good. It's very much based on the cartoon design. But then he gets this weird wing-like cape thing made out of his car kibble on the back. And most people, including myself, are not fond of this. It looks very just kibble. It looks like a big mess of car parts just splayed out there. Now, Mark actually did address this during the stream, and he said, what they were trying to do is, make it, kind of interesting and make it like a cape. And I get that, but I don't think the execution really came out the way they had hoped. I see what they were going for, but especially from the front, it just looks like an exploded mess on his back. I think they would have been better served just keeping the back kibble, compact and just folded tightly against his back, kind of like the Combiner Wars version. We know he's got to have the kibble go somewhere. The character model didn't have the car kibble. Obviously, a transforming toy has to. But I don't think this was the right way to go. It really makes his silhouette very messy looking. It looks like he's, only halfway transformed or something. I think really they should just have kept that, very tight, very collapsed, and just pressed flat up against his back. I don't think most people mind a backpack as long as it's not huge and obnoxious. We recognize most Transformers have back kibble of some kind. It's just about making it look clean, I think, is where, the key is. So, he's okay. I'm not blown away by him. In some ways, I actually prefer the Combiner Wars version, but it is what it is. I don't think he turned out as well as Dragstrip did, but he's not terrible. Next, let's talk about Knockout. So Knockout is an interesting one because he's another Prime Universe import. So just like RC and Bulkhead, he got the G1 treatment for his Prime design. I think as far as alternate mode and placement of the alternate mode kibble, he comes maybe the closest. I don't know. He's kind of neck and neck with RC on that. Bulkhead just did his own thing. Completely different vehicle mode, very different silhouette. Bulkhead was a very big departure from his Prime design, aside from the head. Knockout, I see what they're going for. Now, Knockout, he is a partial retool of the Studio Series 86 Jazz, but he does have a lot of new parts going on. So I think they did a good job. There's a pretty minimal part usage. I think the shoulders are the same, the shins, the pelvic area, but then a lot of the stuff is very different. It's a very thorough reshelling, and the vehicle mode is gorgeous. They got that really nice patterning on the sides there, and they got that really mustard golden rim color going on. I think he looks very, very good. And they included his spear weapon, which can be broken up into, you know, a couple smaller weapons, either like a, you know, long rifle and a little dagger thing, or he can actually combine them and wield them like a spear. Now, they didn't actually show him holding the spear by its little extra handle there like he could. They had it attached to his forearm, but you have a lot of options here. I think he looks really good. A lot of people don't like him. I think for, you know, a G1 reimagining of the character, I think he came out very, very well. Now, one thing I do agree with a lot of people on with criticism, I think the head sculpt is okay. I think it's close enough to, you know, knock out. The expression, though, is weird because he's got this very serious expression, and, you know, people expect the character of Knockout to have, like, some sort of snarky grin because that's just the kind of character he is. It feels like a missed opportunity to not have him giving a little smirk there or something. I don't know why they decided to give him, like, this super serious face. It doesn't seem to fit the character at all. So that's really my only gripe with Knockout. If they had just given him, like, a little smirk, I think he would have been perfect. But it's a pretty small detail. I still think he looks really good. I think his colors are phenomenal. He looks like a very nice figure. Next, we'll move on to Beast Wars Tarantulas. And unsurprisingly, this is based off of Tarantulas' Season 1, you know, pre-Transmetal form. And I think he looks fantastic. The Tarantula mode, it hews a lot closer to the original transformation setup than the new Black Arachnia toy did, where he's even got his little pincer hands, you know, coming out and forming like mandibles on the face. Now, I do think it looks a little weird because the way the tarantula head is sculpted, you really don't need those extra mandibles going on. So they do seem a bit superfluous, like make him look much more stylized than realistic. Aside from that, though, I think he looks really good. And then the robot mode, I think it's dead on. I know there is some parts reused with Black Arachnia, but it's pretty minimal. And he is quite a bit bigger than Black Arachnia, as we saw in the stream. So I'm really completely digging this toy. I think the transformation is very faithful to the original toy, and both modes look really, really good. The robot mode especially. I love the robot mode. Pretty much dead on to how he should look. And what's a neat little bonus is not only does he include his little crossbow stinger weapon thing from the original toy in the show, he also includes some kind of a modified take on the buzzsaw weapon from his Transmetal form. So that's something he actually shares with Kingdom Cheetor, where he's, you know, the regular non-Transmetal version, but he has a weapon that was from the Transmetal version of the character. Unlike Cheetor, however, he still actually includes his regular weapon too, so I think he's a win-win. Absolutely sold on this guy. I cannot wait to pick him up and add him to my Predacon cast. That really just leaves us, you know, Inferno to complete the Season 1 cast, so good stuff right there. And then lastly, for the Deluxes, we get elita-one. The third elita-one in like 4 years. She's really getting a lot of going from no toys to all the toys. But this one I think is aiming to be a lot closer to her actual Generation 1 cartoon design. You had the Prime Wars elita-one, who the robot mode, you know, was clearly based on the cartoon aesthetic, but she turned into a very different vehicle, so it gave her a very different silhouette. You know, she had wings on her back and everything. Then you have the Netflix one, which was much more stylized to be its own thing, especially with the head design. This one, I think he was a lot closer. The vehicle mode is interesting. So we know, because of leaks and everything, that this is a pre-tool for the Headmaster Jr. character, Minerva. And once you see the robot mode, it becomes very obvious. What's not obvious in that vein is the vehicle mode, because this vehicle mode is a very, very different shape than Minerva's. They called it like a dune buggy or something, and while I don't think it quite looks like a dune buggy, I could see, you know, the inspiration there, because it doesn't quite look like a car either. It's like some sort of weird mishmash between a regular car and a dune buggy. It doesn't look bad per se, but I have a hard time imagining how that's supposed to translate to Minerva's vehicle mode. I'm guessing they're just gonna take some artistic license, and, you know, the actual shape of the car body is not gonna match the classic one. Now, one thing I will criticize the vehicle mode on, it's something a lot of people pointed out, is the way the color breakdown works here. Like, the colors work fine for the robot mode, but then the way it folds up into vehicle mode, it's very disjointed looking. It really doesn't look great. Hopefully it'll look better on Minerva, but yeah, the colors are very splotchy. Not a huge fan of the way that turned out. And now what you'll see here is that little bit of a fake helmet kibble on the top. So that's a removable piece that's designed to look like the top of her head. And at first I was like really baffled by that, like why would you do that? And then I went back and I saw the screenshot, very incomplete screenshot that we ever saw of her vehicle mode from the Generation 1 cartoon. And yeah, the top of her head was sticking out. So that's what they're going for. They're trying to recreate that look. Now it is a fake part, which is, not something I'm a fan of. But because this character, the figure was really designed to be Minerva first, I get how they had to make that work. What does bug me about it, more than the fact that it's a fake part, is that the fake helmet piece, it's completely unpainted, unlike her real head, so it really breaks the illusion. Like, I know budget's a thing, but, like, was it really gonna push you guys over the edge to put that little bit of paint there on, like, the horns and the crest? Apparently so. So that's one thing I think is a shame. Now, that piece is removable, and I believe it just plugs on via, like, a 5mm post, which is probably where the light bar is going to go for Minerva. That's probably why this is set up the way it is, because for Minerva, I'm sure there's going to be a light bar that attaches there, because she was an emergency vehicle. So, all that considered, I think she's a very, very good elita-one for a pre-tool. And I'm curious to see, what is going to be changed when they move to Minerva. Hopefully, they actually tool Minerva to be a headmaster. I'm going to be massively disappointed if they release a Minerva toy for the first time since, the original Master Force, and it's not a headmaster. That, to me, is going to kill it. I'm sure the robot mode will look nice, but the fact that it won't have that classic feature that she's known for, really going to bother me. But for what we get here, we can see the robot mode, and I think it looks really good. Mark pointed out how the figure has, multiple ways you can display the back kibble. You can either keep it, compact and make it like a standard backpack, which very much does harken back to like the recent RC toys and stuff. Or you can extend those pieces and give her kind of these shoulder pylons, which is obviously going to come into play for Minerva because that's what it's meant to look like. As far as, again, the individual robot details, I don't know what's going to be retooled and what's not. We can see that while one of her weapons is based off of elita-one's classic weapon, the other one is supposed to be Minerva/Nightbeat's weapon, so they're probably not going to change those at all. I imagine, new head, which will hopefully be detachable, and, a headmaster. Probably some new robot details as far as, like, the torso area and all that. And obviously new colors, light bar. I think it can work pretty well. Will this figure be, further retooled into Nightbeat? If it works, I mean, we definitely need a proper Nightbeat, and again, better be a headmaster, or, people aren't going to be happy. But I like what we get here, and I think so far this is my favorite figure of elita-one. Even if, she's got the weird splotchy colors in vehicle mode, I still think it's the best one we've ever had. Okay, moving on to the Voyagers. Well, it turns out Hasbro really listened to fans, and we are finally getting a wide retail release of the Netflix cassette deck Soundwave. I'm just kidding. They're re-releasing Siege Soundwave. Why? I could not tell you. There's no way they thought this is the one people want. And I think that, they covered this so briefly, that they know that no one's interested. Like, everybody's collectively disappointed here because the Siege one was easy enough to get, right? It was a full retail release Voyager. Yeah, it sold out, at first because it's Soundwave, but eventually it reached saturation and it sat around just like Megatron did. It wasn't anything special, and a lot of people don't really like the janky alt mode. So this, like the Wave 1 Galvatron and Legacy, is a clean version. It's not exactly the same. They cleaned up all the battle damage. So if you really, really want a Siege Soundwave without the battle damage, you can get it. But I think the vast majority of people were really hoping for the cassette deck version, the Netflix retool. And even though I don't think that retool is the best thing ever, it's going to have a lot more appeal to people. I know Hasbro knows this. So there has to be a reason that it wasn't the Netflix version. And I'm starting to believe that there must be some sort of business agreement, some legal agreement with Walmart that has locked in those Netflix retools specifically to Walmart. And normally I wouldn't think that, but let's look at the Bumblebee, right? The Volkswagen Bumblebee that they released on Netflix. That version of the mold has only been released through Walmart and nothing else. And when Target got that Worlds Collide pack and they had a Bumblebee, they finally got the colors right. He was finally yellow, and he finally had the Autobot symbol on his chest like he should, instead of looking like, you know, mustard. But it was the Cliffjumper body type. And a lot of people were like, why? Who wants this? It's just like Siege Soundwave here. Who wants this? This isn't what people are asking for. They're asking for, you know, a version of the character that has the right alt mode, that has good coloring, and is easier to get. And both times they didn't deliver, and it's really got me thinking, it's gotta be a restriction placed on them. There's no way that they're releasing versions of the toy that they know people don't want, unless they're just, you know, doing the old Hasbro thing of never giving us the perfect version until we've bought 5 other versions. And then they're like, okay, now you can, you know, have the one you want and spend more money. Maybe that's what they're going for, but especially in the case of Soundwave, it seems unlikely. I don't think that this is going to go over well with anybody. And though it's not, you know, definitive evidence of my theory here, the Elita tooling of the RC mold has never been re-released either. Now, there's probably not a lot of demand for that particular one, but the fact that those retools have not been released outside of the Walmart exclusive line leads me to believe that there's something going on there. And look, I've spent like 10 times as much time on the Soundwave as Hasbro did, because again, you know that they know nobody wants this. I mean, they practically skipped over it. And the pre-orders for this guy didn't even open up when the rest did. Like, this is going to be the absolute dud of Wave 2. Now, let's move on to the other Voyager, the one that is actually awesome and exciting. We are finally, for the first time ever, getting a proper Generation 2 Jhiaxus. Like, the big bad of the Generation 2 comic book series that has had a couple toys over the years, but they've always been a very far cry from his classic design. The first one was just a Beast Machines a Jetstorm recolor. And it was cool because it was just a nod, right? It wasn't meant to be the, you know, G1 continuity character. It was just his own thing. And then we got the one in Thrilling 30. And not only was he just an Armada Starscream retool, they decided to go with that same bright orange color they used for the Robots in Disguise version. For some reason. Like, they couldn't even get the colors right. Jhiaxus, as we can see, is normally white, yellow, and green, with a little bit of red thrown in. So they've never even come close to that design, and we're finally getting it. So this is the alt mode that you're seeing, so obviously that, you know, that's not what we recognize from the comics. And that's because in the comics, you never actually had an alt mode. So this one, I think, is a little janky. It's not the strongest alt mode. You can see it's, you know, it's kind of an afterthought, kind of like the Bumblebee movie figures they've just done, like that Soundwave and everything, where all you had to go off was a robot mode, and then you also had to, like, make an alt mode happen out of that. So we can tell it's what happened here, but, you know, let's be honest, we're not buying him for the alt mode. He never even had one in the comic. I mean, he had one, but it was never shown. So now the robot mode. This thing is like perfection. They absolutely nailed Jhiaxus' robot mode. He looks like he jumped right out of the comics. Now, there are some slight discrepancies in specific details, like on his chest. Those details actually seem to be taken from the Regeneration 1 comic, which was kind of like a reimagining of G2. So, you know, certain, like, details on the chest cockpit and all that seem to be more inspired by that. But, I mean, honestly, close enough. Like, it's really minor differences. And they're both the G1, G2, Jhiaxus character. So blending, you know, a little bit of each isn't really a big deal. He still looks enough like either version to where he just nails it. And I am super stoked for this guy, because I was starting to think we were never going to get a proper Jhiaxus. And here we are finally after, what, 3 decades now? Because, yeah, it was about early 90s, right? So 3 decades, we're finally getting the comic book Generation 2 Jhiaxus. Now, what's odd is he actually has a little Decepticon symbol on his chest. It is the G2 symbol, so at least they got that right, unlike Laser Prime. But Jhiaxus isn't really a Decepticon, per se. You know, he was his own faction. They just called themselves the Seibertronians. Now, I think that faction did stem from Decepticons. It's not really proper for him to have a G2 Decepticon logo, because he would have branched off from that faction well before Generation 2 was a thing. But I get it. You know, they want to brand him something. It's not a huge detail to me. I would have preferred them just not putting it on there, honestly. Maybe even giving him his own, you know, faction symbol for the Cybertronian faction, but it's fine. He's still like 99% awesome, so I am good with him. Next, they revealed one new leader class figure, and this is the triple changer Blitzwing, who was also spoiled a little bit ahead of time with that like CBR reveal and everything. I think the other leader is just going to be a repack of Laser Prime, which is good because he's proving to be rather difficult to find. Because for some reason they changed him from being a solid case to putting him with Kingdom Galvatron, so whatever. Anyway, so Blitzwing. He's been very divisive, a lot like Wildrider. It's funny how they showed those two off, and they're probably like the least liked out of all these. His robot mode looks fantastic. Best looking Blitzwing robot mode we've ever had. Now, he cheats the transformation pretty severely. The wings on his back that he's known for having, they're fake. They're fake wings. His actual wings wrap around his legs, kind of like the Studio Series, like 2007 Megatron. Really cheats the engineering there. And then you see the alt modes. Now, the tank mode has been pretty divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it. I'm leaning toward hating it, honestly. Most of the tank looks good, and then you have the cockpit. The very unfortunately placed cockpit. Now, you know, the new direction with Generations, just like Masterpiece, is cartoon accuracy. They're all about the cartoon accuracy. Yuck. But that's what they're going for. And in the cartoon, Blitzwing's tank mode did indeed have, you know, a little cockpit sticking out. First of all, that shows why pure cartoon accuracy is not always a good thing. But also, on the toy, it ends up being far more prominent than it was in the animation model. Like, comically large, just sticking off the front of the tank mode. I think it looks terrible. It really ruins an otherwise very clean-looking tank mode. It's bad. And then the jet mode. I think almost everyone can agree the jet mode is absolute garbage. Like, you basically have a jet just sitting on top of a tank. But, like, the tank's the tank portion's really big and really wide. So, you know, it's almost like doing an Overlord thing when, like, you know, Overlord's plane would, like, attach to the tank and, like, fly it around. It doesn't look like anything like a convincing jet. Like, every other version of Blitzwing, whether it's the old G1 toy, the Thrilling 30, as goofy as that was, and the Titans Return, all had a far, far better jet mode. This is terrible. And this is what happens when you want to stick, you know, way too close to cartoon accuracy and you try to reinvent the wheel. You know, the Generation 1 toys were very simple toys, but their core engineering worked for the most part. Basically, all you have to do is take that engineering and expand on it. Increase the posability, you know, make parts break up more. They decided to do something super, super different with the way this guy transforms, where, in my mind, it compromises all three modes. You get the weird tank boner, I'm just going to say it. It's the tank boner. You have the atrocious-looking jet mode, and then the robot mode, again, makes the baffling choice to not even actually use the character's wings and just put fake wings on them. I mean, at least the robot mode looks good. This is my least favorite of the new figures. I say new because the Soundwave is just a joke. I'm not even going to acknowledge that thing's existence anymore. But this right here, to me, this ain't it. Some people really love it. Some people are like, well, the robot mode looks good, so I don't care about anything else. And now, I do generally agree that robot mode takes precedence over everything. But, like, to an extent. Like, the vehicle mode has to at least not be god-awful. And in this case, I think both of his are utter trash. I'm not a fan. Now, am I going to get it? Yes, I'm going to get it. One, because I'm OCD completionist guy. But also, I want to review it for you guys. But, oh, man. Like, as bad as Astro Train was with his vehicle modes, this guy takes the cake for, like, worst triple changer. Even Broadside, like Titans Return Broadside, at least had one good-looking vehicle mode. The carrier mode was great. Jet mode was, I don't even know what that was, but honestly, I'd say this jet mode's almost as bad as that one. So, yeah, not a huge fan of this. I'm not gonna lie. You know, if I were more responsible with my money and not such a completionist, I would pass on this. All right. Now, finally, the most exciting figure to be shown off here for Legacy, the new Commander-class Motormaster. We knew it was coming. The package images, you know, got leaked here recently. Motormaster is very interesting. Now, if you saw my drag strip review, you know how I feel about the direction they're going with the Stunticons. You know, they're going for the pure cartoon accuracy, which means they don't combine in the traditional sense. You know, the smaller members don't form limbs. They're not swappable. They're not, you know, part of the Scramble City aesthetic. They're not, you know, Combiner Wars compatible. You basically just have Motormaster turn into Menasor by himself and then slap car parts on the outsides of his limbs. That's what they're going for. If you're a die-hard G1 cartoon purist, you probably love this. I hate it. I hate the direction. To me, that's not a combiner. It's a robot. It's a big robot that slaps cars on like armor. That's not a combiner. Like, nobody's forming part of the body. He's just wearing them. So I just want to get that out of the way. Not a fan of the direction. For what he is, though, and what he's trying to accomplish, I think he accomplishes it with flying colors. So you get the vehicle mode. It's his classic vehicle mode. It actually includes a trailer this time, unlike the, you know, very poorly received Combiner Wars version. And it looks very close to the classic vehicle. It looks really, really good. A lot of nice details on it. The trailer is removable and has like a little kickstand, so it can just kind of sit on its own, and you can just have the truck, you know, separate. No issues with the vehicle mode at all. I think it looks amazing. The Motormaster robot mode, I think it looks okay. I think his proportions are weird. He's got these like really long, skinny legs and stuff. Not amazing looking, but good looking enough. And he looks a lot closer to his Generation 1 design, you know, both toy and cartoon, than the Combiner Wars one. Now, just like Blitzwing, he uses some pretty excessive fake kibble here. You can see the feet are, you know, halves of the truck cab, except they're fake truck cab halves. I actually cannot tell where the actual, like, face of the truck goes on this thing. I've been trying to figure that out. I don't know where that hides away, but they're fake. And you can tell they're fake because the headlights are actually painted on his feet, but they're not painted on the actual truck face. So, yeah, he cheats a lot. Again, that's something I'm never a fan of. I've seen a lot of really good attempts at Motormaster from third parties that actually utilize the face of the truck as his feet, like the G1 toy, and they do it very, very well. Now, I know some people are going to say, oh, you can't compare a third party to, you know, like, but some of these are like simple toys. Some are like Legends toys. And while a third-party Legends is far more intricate than a Hasbro Legends, it shouldn't be far more intricate than a Hasbro Commander class toy at a much larger scale, right? If they can pull that off with something really tiny, Hasbro could pull it off with something much bigger, and, you know, it costs $90 in the US. But it was decided that's the route they were going. Again, for cartoon accuracy, they wanted to have, you know, magical, smaller feet like the cartoon, so that's what they went with. I don't hate it, but I hate the way they achieve it. The trailer actually turns into a battle station, which is something that the original really didn't do. Now, the entire Motormaster toy became some sort of a splayed-out battle station that actually connected a Trypticon, like all of the early Scramble City leader torso bot guys. This is a different approach where, you know, the robot mode's separate from the trailer completely, and the trailer does its own thing. And it's pretty good looking. A lot of people have pointed out that it looks a bit like Thunder Clash's trailer, and there was a rumor going around that this toy would be retooled into Thunder Clash. I don't know if that's true. I mean, it would need a lot of very extensive retooling to actually look like a good Thunder Clash, but maybe that's what they're going for here. And I think as far as a base mode, it's pretty competent looking. And then they actually showed off the full Super Robot Menasor mode, which can be more or less achieved without the use of any of the other Stunticons. He's just, you know, kind of a very thin, lanky Menasor. And, you know, the cab combines with the trailer to form, like, 90% of Menasor right there. And they even showed off on the box. Like, you'd be like, oh, here it is. This is a super robot you can make. Which is, again, I'm not a fan of this because it makes the other members just kind of an afterthought. Because all they do is they slap onto the outsides of his arms and slap onto the backs of his legs. That's where they go. And they don't really transform much. Like the arm bots, they plug in, and then because of like a little tab and everything, they split in half and the arm like extends out. And then the leg bots, if, you know, breakdown is going to be like Wildrider, basically the hood just kind of flips up and they plug onto the back of the shin. And now that does have this nice little automorph feature where the like shin, the empty shin, like doors flip down, like shut. and it creates something that looks like a grayed out version of the underside of the vehicle, which is cartoon accurate. That's how it looked in the cartoon. I think it's goofy. I very much would have preferred actual limbots and, you know, being able to swap them around, but that's the direction they went with. Now, I'm sure it's going to look great. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, he does what he does very well. He is a very good cartoon accurate Menasor. I just don't like cartoon Menasor. So, yeah, I'm going to get this guy. I'm sure he's going to be a lot of fun. I think he's going to look really, really good with the limbs on there. He's going to be, you know, much more stable, posable toy than the Combiner Wars version, but I'm still vehemently disappointed that he isn't a more traditional, you know, Combiner Menasor. Now, what's really interesting, a lot of people point out, is it does appear that his legs utilize the Combiner Wars, like, Combiner peg system. You have pegs that are on the lower legs that plug into little spring-loaded slots on the upper legs. We're still not 100% sure if those are the exact same, like, size and everything as the Combiner Wars pegs. They appear to be. They may not be. You know, we may get this thing in hand and find out they're not. But when we first noticed this, I got excited. I got hopeful. Because in theory, if those are the size of Combiner Wars pegs, you could swap out those legs for the actual Stunticon limbs from Combiner Wars. So you can give him actual limb bots. So then I started thinking, oh man, does that mean the shoulders do the same thing? And I was really excited for that until the stream happened and we got a much better look, and it does not appear to be the case at all. They don't use the same connection system for the arms at all. That killed me. I was like, oh, they could have given everybody what they wanted, right? You could have had your cartoon accurate Menasor where you slap cars on him, or you could remove parts of the Menasor body and actually attach Stunticon limbs or any Combiner Wars compatible limbs. That would have been the most amazing thing they could have done. And they're like halfway there. The legs did it. They couldn't have engineered it to where, you know, that shoulder area like doesn't connect with the same system. They couldn't do that. Man, was I crushed when I realized that. I was like, this was almost perfect. This almost gave everybody what they wanted. You could have either had the new system or the old system, and then your more old school Menasor would have a much better torso that actually looked like Menasor. Man, talk about coming so close yet so far. So, does it completely kill the toy for me? No. Again, I think it's interesting, and I think it's going to be a really well-engineered, awesome, you know, giant robot. It's just, to me, not going to be a Combiner. It's going to be something else, which is a shame because what I and many others have really wanted was another go at the Combiner Wars Menasor, right? Another go at a better Motormaster. Maybe better limbots too. Like I think the limbots so far look pretty good, but they're not compatible with that system. So, you know, personally I would have preferred them just revisiting, you know, the whole Combiner peg thing, the limbs, all that stuff. Didn't happen. Very disappointed. Really cuts down the value of this toy in my eyes because it's a very expensive toy. I mean, this is going to be like probably the most expensive Combiner yet, outside of like Japanese imports, because your Titan class Combiners, your Devastator, your Predaking, those were like old Titan prices of like 150, 160-ish. This is going to cost a lot more than that with current prices, right? It's $90 just for Motormaster, and then you have 4 limbots at $25 each. So you're talking $190. Basically current Titan class prices, which, by the way, if you didn't know, Titans are $190 now, so yay for that. So they're going to cost as much as a modern Titan, and they're going to be far smaller than the other Titan class Combiner. So cool, cool. Really expensive, not even a Combiner. Okay, I've spent a lot of time on Menasor. I mean, there's a lot to talk about with him, so I don't mind spending time on it. But let's move on to the final reveal. And this one is different because it's not Legacy, it's Shattered Glass. Now, a lot of people were expecting to see a Shattered Glass Blaster because package images of that toy just got leaked recently. But no, they decided to reveal a Leader Class Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus. Now, most people, I think, would have expected this to be a retool of the new Laser Optimus Prime because Shattered Glass Magnus has traditionally been based on Laser Prime. It's not. It's Kingdom Ultra Magnus. This time he's got, you know, new colors and a new head. It's just the super robot mode head that's different, and that is based on the fun publications like creepy skull face design. What's really interesting here is that he comes with an extra head that you can swap out. Now, the heads are attached via a screw, like the two halves combined together via a screw, so you do actually have to take the screw out to swap the heads, which is something very new for Transformers. It's not a bad thing, you just need to make sure you have a Phillips head screwdriver. But you can swap it out with a more traditional Ultra Magnus shaped head. And they're billing this as you can either have Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus, or you can have the Diaclone-inspired Delta Magnus. I think it's a cool concept. I do appreciate what they're doing here, where you're kind of getting two toys in one, and you could satisfy a lot more people that way. But, you know, I do have pretty high standards for the design team, admittedly. I very much would have preferred this Shattered Glass Magnus be a retool of the Laser Prime, and be, you know, much closer to that design, and then just get a separate Delta Magnus. My guess is they weren't really confident enough on putting both these toys out and having them both sell well, so they figured they can just make one toy and then just include a swappable head. I mean, it still looks good for what it is. You know, it's different than what we were hoping for, but it still looks really cool. He looks very big and powerful. But if you go the Delta Magnus route and swap the head out, you still end up with the Shattered Glass Autobot symbol. So that, to me, kind of breaks the immersion, right? You're like, oh, it's Delta Magnus, but why does he have a purple Autobot symbol? Now, you know, Autobot symbols aren't always red or, you know, whatever. They can be different colors. So a lot of people will be like, oh, it's not a big deal. And it's not a big deal. But it is why I would have preferred to see these released as separate characters, right? Get your Laser Prime retool, bad guy, and then get your Kingdom retool, Delta Magnus. That would have been ideal. This is kind of the second best thing. And I am going to enjoy it. It's going to be really cool to have in the collection. Just sadly not what I was hoping for. Okay, and this is a pretty long one, but this covers, you know, everything that was revealed, at least toy-wise, in the Fan First Tuesday. He also had, you know, mobile game stuff and all that, an art book, but I'm focused on the toys. Most of these I think are fantastic. The Soundwave, again, is just kind of like a WTF moment. Like, I don't know who's really going to be in for this except people that missed out on the Siege Soundwave. I think Blitzwing's trash. I'm sorry. People are going to get mad, and there's going to be really angry people in the comments, but, like, I don't care. I think he's utter garbage. Like, the only thing he's got going for him is a clean-looking robot mode, and that's it. Pretty much all the deluxes I think are great. Wildrider's backpack is stupid, but it's not a deal breaker. It's just a weird choice. Jhiaxus, super pumped. Love it. Love everything about it. Motormaster, I think, is going to be a great toy. Not what I was hoping for, but a great toy. And the same for the Shattered Glass Ultra Magnus. Not what I was hoping for, but I'm sure I'm still going to enjoy him, even though he's still got that really terrible arm kibble on the truck cab. But, you know, that's not going to go away on that mold ever, so just got to live with that. So overall, very excited for the reveals. I think this was one of the best, like, fan-first events they've done, like, big reveals that they've done. They revealed a lot of stuff at once. Oddly, they left out the core class. I don't know if they just cut them for time or what, but I've noticed, like, core class really kind of gets ignored a lot lately. Like, a lot of the time they get skipped in reveals, and they don't go up for pre-orders. Like, Hasbro doesn't even, like, put them up for pre-order. Like, they'll list them eventually when they're actually in stock, but most of the time you can't even pre-order these things for a while. I don't know why core class gets a little love. Maybe they just think it's not worth the time. I don't know. But for what we got, I think one of the best reveals we had in a long time. I know a lot of them have been kind of disappointing. You know, you only get like a couple figures shown off and you're like, oh, that's it. This was a big one, which is why this video is so long, but I think it was awesome. Really stoked for most of these. I'll be picking all of them up except Soundwave because I don't need him. And despite my grievances with some of them, I very much look forward to reviewing all these toys for you in the future. And that's really all I have to say on this reveal. Again, like I said, overall very, very good with some disappointments. So now I want to know what you all think. Were you excited for this? Do you like what they revealed so far? Do you not like some of the figures, and, you know, why or why not? Any and all feedback, as always, is welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this news video, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. Hey, thank you for joining me for this Transformers news video on April 14th, 2022. And with all that said, I will see you next time.